the absolute finest entertainment on the internet. Join us in fighting back against evil.
It's hotter than a blacktop in July, sweating like a sinner in a church, and I just wanna get out with my crew tonight and shoot at the lights. Got a couple 40s full of hops and fun, looking for a good time, gotta live it up. Leave behind the city, hop inside my truck. No, we don't give up. We're gonna paint the night red. Root and holler till we're dead. We're down to turn up. We're up to get down. Saying, hey, y'all.
Good evening, everybody. Thursday night, 8 p.m., the Brattleboro News Recap Show, the Planet Hank Live Show, the finest entertainment in all of Vermont. Tonight, we have a massive show planned. We've got a lot of topics. We've got a special guest, Vermont Senator Russ Ingalls. He's got some big news and a lot of stuff that we're going to go over. But first, let me go ahead and show you the show preview for the night. Like I said, we've got Senator Russ Ingalls on the show tonight. We're going to be covering the government shutdown and how it affects Vermont. We're going to talk about a Maine teacher who is dealing with a familiar case of texting. We're going to talk about Trump and Venezuela and some comments that he made. A potential Turning Point USA halftime show. And an ICE facility popping up here in Vermont. So the Brattleboro News Recap Show, the Planet Hank Live Show, we've been getting everybody interested in the state of Vermont and trying to bring ourselves back into the winnings column here for our state and trying to educate people on some of the differences of state politics and national politics and how things get confusing and nasty on both sides of the aisle. And this week has been no different, and there's a ton of action going on for our state political scene, and everybody's sort of fired up with Republican Party reorgs all the way from towns to counties and into the state. And so my guest tonight is a senator here in Vermont in Essex County, and he is doing a repeat interview because the last interview we had, there was a little bit of an audio technical difficulty. But with no further ado, I've got Senator Russ Ingalls for everybody. Hey, Senator, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Sorry for the little bit of darkness here. I'm down to Washington County at the reorg for them, and had a chance to speak with them, which I really, really enjoyed. And so I found a little signal here and able to join you.
There it is. Great. And thanks for coming back. I know that it was super frustrating for both of us and everybody watching, listening to our audio difficulties for the last show. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sort of just give you a little introduction here. This is Senator Russ Ingalls. He is a leader here in the state of Vermont, a member of the Republican Party. He has represented the Essex-Orleans district in the Vermont Senate since 2019. And would you like to add anything to that?
No, I've just it's been a good run. We've enjoyed it, and I love being a senator. I love representing my communities. I like doing big things for the state, and just very happy to be in the process.
Very good. And so I'm going to jump right into some questions that we have prepared for you so everybody can get to it. Senator, you've thrown your hat into the ring to lead the Vermont Republican Party at what you call a pivotal moment in our state. Vermonters are grappling with skyrocketing property taxes, soaring energy costs, and growing concerns about affordability. Why is now the right time for you to step up and lead the VTGOP?
Well, we had a great election the last cycle, and I just think it's if history repeats itself, sometimes that doesn't go so well in the next election. I was looking at where we were as far as for the VTGOP, and we have no money, and we don't have a rudder to steer us in the right direction. I kind of threw my hat in there a little bit, and boy, the phone started ringing off. I had a lot of people who just said, Russ, it's very important that you get involved here because, you know, we have a lot of money that we want to put towards it, but we don't really feel that we can do that in the present situation. So, you know, the last time that we did this, the Vermont GOP didn't have much money. We were very fortunate to have some business donors who stepped right up, and man, it made a heck of a difference. I think I can come in and bring some leadership to the Vermont GOP, and I think we can run 180 seats, and man, what a difference that would make, because we have so many seats that aren't run.
And so is there anything about the chair now or where the direction of this party is going that you sort of feel like you could highlight as exactly what you want to change or do or criticize in any way?
Well, I don't want to criticize anyone. I'm thankful for what the chair has done, but I think he's just gone as far as he can go. I just think it's stagnant right now. I mean, we're a year away from an election. We have $0 in our coffers, zero. And that was one of the most exciting things for me is once I did announce, the phone started ringing and said, hey, you know what? We have these dollars, and we have them dollars, and we have those dollars. And, you know, we have none of those dollars if it stays the same. But if you are willing to jump in and put your energy into it, we're ready to invest in you. So I think that was really kind of a big thing, big decision for me to jump in.
Okay, so what we're dealing with is I think that we are having a similar audio issue again, and we're getting lots of comments. Everybody's complaining about it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Is maybe turn the volume down on your phone, and we'll see if that changes it.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you fine, just like that. Maybe he has an echo a little bit.
I can't really hear you very well, so
right.
I don't. Let's just fool with this just for a second.
You hear it coming through your earbuds? Now we can't hear your audio. You turned your mic off.
Okay. Now I can hear you. But I think there's still an echo.
Yeah. Let me.
I think now you're muted. I can't hear you now.
Yeah. So
now I can now.
Yeah, I was just trying to say maybe if I turn my microphone off, that would make it so that yours. But what I think that it is we've got a little kink that we got to work out, Senator, and I would hate to drag everybody through another interview that's all echoes like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wish you luck in your campaign, and everybody's watching and we're reading, and this is Russ Ingalls, and we support you, and we're going to figure this out, and we're going to do this interview again once we get it all straightened out.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Have a nice evening. So moving on, which was terrible. Yeah, she says when I mute me that his echo is gone. Every once in a while, these shows just get caught up with an audio. I've had thousands of guests on the Planet Hank live show. We've dealt with this before. Some people's stuff, what they've got going on for hardware just doesn't match up, and I don't know what it is. And he says that he's been on several other podcasts and done all kinds of other things, and so we're just going to run with it and go with what we got. So we're going to do the show as we have it now. He goes, dang, I follow Russ. He goes, add me, Hank. Yeah, he goes, just like in the military, you have to do a radio check in advance. Well, yeah, we did. We did this we were on here a half hour before the show, And like I said, I can't hear the echo coming through on my end. It only is getting put through for the broadcast, so it's not me. Trigger warning. This content may be considered graphic to some audiences for entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. And maybe that's what you're looking for. Maybe you're looking to be offended by something, and I'll tell you like this. Boy, we've been offensive, and we've had a lot of offended people, and so it's sort of the trend in politics right now. There's a lot of that going on. And there's a lot about, and Jaden Clark says, let's hear about Ukraine. We got a lot of stuff. We're going to be discussing Ukraine, but the first topic that I've got for you guys tonight, let me go ahead and throw this up. So today we're going to be diving into the government shutdown a little bit and discussing what's going on with that, because it's been absolutely ridiculous. So as of 5:02 today, Congress still hasn't passed those appropriation bills, leaving federal funding on ice. Vermont's economy takes a $104 million monthly hit to its gross state product. Think $24 million per week if this drags on. It's been nuts. That is not just numbers. About 100 jobs could vanish, with 7,000 federal workers, or 2.2% of our workforce, furloughed or working without pay. Small businesses feel the pinch too. SBA loan freezes could cost us $4 million a month, stalling growth in our rural heartland. Federal contracts down $12 million over a month. Money that keeps local firms afloat, especially in manufacturing. Now let's talk benefits. 65,000 Vermonters, including 25,000 kids, rely on SNAP, but after 30 days, those food dollars could dry up. So all of this conversation and the way they like to levy children and stamps and SNAP benefits, and you're taking food away from children to protect billionaires. You know, this shutdown that they're dragging on and refusing to make a deal for, this is going to start affecting not just military and federal workers, but kids, SNAP benefits. WIC, critical for 10,000 moms and children, stops immediately. Local funding can't fill that gap fast enough. Seniors, around 1,000, get security by check. Delays could mean we skipped meds or heat this winter. Consumer spending drops $61 million monthly. Unpaid workers and lost contracts ripple through main streets. Why is this happening? Washington's gridlock. Partisan fights over spending prioritizes leaving states like ours in the dust. Vermont's small, sure, but we lean on federal dollars. 35% of our budget comes from D.C., more than most states. Crazy. And we need federal funding more than almost all states. On the circuit writes, not shocking, no one wants to work here. Everyone wants to just smoke pot, and that's a huge problem. Jaden says, Hank, the world needs to know about what this world is coming to. Back pay might come, but the damage, lost businesses, hunger stress is real now. Lawmakers need to act. So in the comments, write who you think is to blame. Do you think that it's Republicans, or do you think that it's the Democrats need to bend the knee and come to make a deal? It's important, and this is all coming from the Department of... Oh, I don't have where it's coming from right here. But I got the link through whitehouse.gov, and they clicked on it, and it was the Department of Consumer Data, and they, you know, it's very important that people are paying attention to the real numbers. These days, it's so hard to find any true media at all because almost every single source is so biased that they're just regurgitating and spin something here or there. And so, you know, before this has disastrous effects on Vermont, I think that it's smart for us to get involved and get this settled quick. She says it's Hank's fault. Says I'm here finally. I agree. It probably is my fault. So we've seen all the news. Vermont has made headlines discussing this text situation with one of our Vermont senators, Senator Douglas, out of Orleans County, which is way up north by the Canadian border. And he was in this Young Republicans chat, and things were going crazy, and nothing good was coming from it. And so there was a bunch of leaked communication between each other in a Telegram chat room. And so now the Republican governor, Phil Scott, has made a bunch of comments against Senator Douglas, and there's been a lot of fallout. And Paul Dame for the VTGOP made some statements. Mark Horster made a bunch of statements. There's been articles all over the state, and everybody's just talking. And so now we're waiting to hear back from Senator Douglas to see what's going to come up with it. What his official response is going to be. Is he going to resign? What's he going to do? What's the plan as far as that? And even the vice president came out and made a bunch of statements about it. And so it's important for me to basically, what I like to do in these situations is kind of stay back and see what's going on and what other media sources and leaders and what everybody's going to say about it. There's been some criticism about the knee-jerk reaction to put out statements and what political gain for or against that position has been. There's been a lot of talk on this, and this is not an isolated incident with this senator in Vermont or that Telegram account at all. There has been several situations on both sides of the aisle where people are having issues with correspondence that they're having with friends or colleagues or emails that are leaked, text message, screenshots that are showed. Even myself, I have been canceled. We all know that. It's so fun when you get canceled. And my buddy all the way up at Vermont Daily Chronicle, Paul Bean, he just had his first experience with getting canceled and has been dealing with the fallout from that and trying to cope with that in a way. So this next situation that I'm going to put the story up comes from, and I'm going to put it up right after this. So now we're talking about this situation in the reverse tense to prove how there's a ton of people across the aisle who have made the exact same mistakes. So I think that it would be wise for everybody to sit back and wait before you make criticism or try to cancel someone. So here's the exact situation playing out in Maine. So a Maine teacher named Ricky Klatt had made a bunch of statements, and I'm going to highlight a fiery clash in Maine's classroom, spotlighting the Kennebunkport teacher who wished Charlie Kirk rest in hell. And it pissed everybody off. And we know why, but it just highlights what we're dealing with. It highlights what we're dealing with because now I guess what the point of my story is that the left is jumping all over our senator from Vermont's comments and trying to use that as a way to basically leverage him out of his position, destroying their supermajority, and they want that seat gone. They want him out of that seat, and they want a chance to turn that into one of their party members holding his position. And obviously, but I'll remind you, this is happening to all different types of people, and people are saying things, and it's the nature as more and more people get online, use apps like Telegram or even Messenger and social media sites to communicate with each other. Screenshots are showing up, inappropriate discussions are happening, and it's something that we have to deal with, and people need to be careful of, especially if they're getting involved in public office and representing people. So as of mid-October 2025, Emily Fagerstrom, a social studies teacher at Kennebunkport High School, stepped down after her explosive Facebook post went viral. It all kicked off Kirk, the Turning Point USA firebrand, hits a Maine event. Fagerstrom fires back online, slamming his hate and division with those brutal words, hoping he rests in hell. Boom. Parents and conservatives flood the school complaints, calling it violent rhetoric unfit for an educator shaping young minds. And now she's resigned. Crazy. Crazy. He said, "What's up with the sound?" He goes, "Now you have audio problems." He goes, "Your mic audio is super messed up. There's so many conspiracies. I don't know what's going on with this." Says audio is buzzing. Let me turn it off. How is that? How is that? How is that? Microphone better? Any audio sound better? Let's just read her apology. She says, "I deeply regret the words. My post was inappropriate and does not reflect the values I strive to uphold as an educator." She says, "Negative. It's scratchy. It's staticky." Now you can't hear me at all? Can you hear that? There it goes. He goes, "Do you need tech support? I know a guy." He says, "It sounds like when you get a blown." He says, "It's good now." Yeah. Better. There we go. So Kirk's clapback. This is what happens when the radical left infiltrates our schools, teachers wishing death upon conservatives. And so that's the whole point of the conversation that I'm having, is that this teacher made a bunch of Charlie Kirk comments, and we've already had that fight weeks ago, obviously. And so now our senator here in the state has made some comments, and some of our leaders, including Paul Dame, Phil Scott, several others, all the Dems, people are calling for him to resign and calling for different things to happen. Whereas I think that this is stuff that we have to be honest. I saw our U.S. House Rep Becca Balint making a bunch of comments about how awful everything he said was. But what about her comments? What about the people who have asked her to step down because of her comments and her inflammatory rhetoric, calling all Republicans and ICE members the Gestapo, and we're Nazis and brown shirts and immigrants that need to wipe people's butts, and that she is a scrappy little term for a lesbian out of Vermont. And she's very crass, and she says all of these things. And then the same style person who has all this inflammatory rhetoric, has all of these categories to slot Republicans in as where, you know, when they canceled me, what was I, a misogynist, racist, homophobic, angry, violent, all of these words. And then when they have rhetoric that's inflammatory and turns the temperature way up, that leads to actual violence and church shootings and assassinations and throwing rocks and burning cars and attacking ICE, somehow all of a sudden they want to play clutching pearls. He goes, Sam doesn't need to step down, but the Republican Party needs to take a bath. He goes, anyways, I'm out for the night. Double standard much? I agree. I think that there is a double standard. Todd says, hey, how are you, bud? She goes, she needs to really go along with Bernie. Yes, she needs to get from here and let Bernie Sanders follow her out the door. Bernie Sanders has been making all kinds of trouble for himself, putting his foot all inside of his mouth and all around his mouth with him and AOC. They refuse to give Trump any credit on the Hamas peace deal. And it's so funny watching them have to go through this over and over and over again. So in this story, conservatives see it as exhibit A for liberal bias, poisoning education, trying to turn the scripts around from being offended and calling everybody that is against their political party racist. They did the same thing to Charlie Kirk. Before he passed away, and now they've learned their lesson with saying nasty stuff about him after his death, that conservatives aren't going to have it and corporations are going to cancel them. Basically, now we're back to where we were before this and trying to start it all over again. Yep. Apparently, Jeff Bush writes, Hitler just freed the Jewish hostages, which is hilarious because obviously the left has been calling Donald Trump literally is Hitler. He literally is. He has to be. And so now he's freed the Jewish hostages and brought peace to Israel and stopped a war. He says, remember those commercials with the egg frying in the pan? This is your brain on drugs. Guess they weren't lying. Yes, it's crazy. It's crazy. So Trump is out here doing the thing with Venezuela, and it was hilarious. I've got some stuff to play for that. Let's take a peek. So a high-stakes border battle as Trump's team vows to crush Venezuela's narco-terrorist gangs threatening our heartland. And Trump's going off today, and it's so funny to watch him do it. It's so funny sometimes to just deal with Trump and all the stuff that he wants to say all the time. Let me see what I got for the video. And so... Is that it? Oh, yeah, here we go.
CIA to go into Venezuela. And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged
Well, I can't
drug
do
busts in
that,
the
but
Caribbean?
I authorize for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back, but that's a really bad, and they did it at a level that probably not, many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer? But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too.
So Trump's out here doing it up, and making his comments the way Trump's done. Spotlight on the bad guys, gangs like Tren de Aragua, now U.S. designated terrorists, smuggling deaths across our seas, fentanyl, and worse, killing Americans by the thousands. So covert CIA ops. And Trump talking about it, they were like, Waltz lays it out there. President Trump is going to do whatever it takes from intelligence community, from the Department of War, and diplomatically to defend U.S. sovereignty against actions that are actively killing Americans. Venezuela whines to the UN about international law violations. Waltz fires back, bring whatever they want. Article 51 of the UN Charter enables a country to defend itself, and that's what President Trump is doing. So this whole thing, and we got to get fentanyl out of our towns. We have to get fentanyl out of our towns. And if this is what it takes, blowing up drug smugglers, I don't understand why people are trying to defend the drug smugglers or axes. And the reporter who asked if they would try to take out Maduro, and Trump's response was pretty funny. He goes, that would be a ridiculous question for me to answer. And it definitely would. It would be hilarious. We lead the country in Vermont for opioid deaths per capita. We are very high with the problems that we have for such a low population here. So all of these border wars that we're dealing with the border being open, with illegals, with ICE, all of this to us, what it means is fentanyl and access for cartels to profit off of us and peddle their dangerous and destructive drugs into our systems. And honestly, our laws here in Vermont, like Title 18, Section 84, was established in 1989, which is a little before we're dealing with this drug crisis, and it needs to be updated to represent what we're dealing with on the streets, because on the street, we're dealing with mayhem and misery and addiction and homelessness, and people can't get off of this junk, and we got to get it out of our communities. And we need to update our laws so that it's a little bit more than a misdemeanor to get arrested with a whole bunch of fentanyl. So I was on the radio show for Vermont Daily Chronicle this morning with Guy Page. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And we discussed a video that I put out, and I know all of you watching in Brattleboro watched my video of the drug bust that one of our all-stars here on the Brattleboro News, Sleeping Beauty, was arrested with a bunch of fentanyl, and they had well over 45, 50 bags in what's known on the street as a brick. And instead of arresting them and putting them in handcuffs and bringing them away to jail, the officer is able to give them a citation under Rule 3, Title 18, to let them have a citation and walk away. And I'm receiving a message that says, people don't die of drug overdoses at Republican parties. So this story here, and making strikes abroad and boots possibly on the ground, and all of this fighting back against Venezuela and drug cartels, against fentanyl crossing our borders and these drug cartels, and all the profiteers in the state of Vermont with their nonprofits and harm reduction. It all is a huge problem. And we've got drug law that is on the wall here that has not really passed committees, actually. It might not be on the wall, about trying to further reduce the penalty for possession of drugs to be a civil infraction with a $50 fine. And that bill has been sponsored by, I think it's 10 senators, S.119 here in Vermont. And of course, Becca White is on there with a whole bunch of other Democrats sponsoring this. And that would be devastating to the state of Vermont. Do not be confused about that. If they reduce the punishment even more from the standards that we have now, which are way out of date and do not represent the crisis that we're dealing with and what we need to fight back against, a citation for a misdemeanor for 40 or 50 bags of fentanyl is unacceptable for the state of Vermont, the culture of Vermonters, and what our traditions are. That does not represent our communities or our ideals in any way. And to further reduce the legal consequences for possession of heroin and crack cocaine to a $50 fine and a civil infraction that doesn't go on your record is the absolute wrong direction, especially since we are struggling with treatment centers and any way to fight back against addiction at all. All of our programs are Band-Aids and coddling, hotel vouchers. Now they want to have a safe injection site. Then they want to reduce the consequences for it. None of those are spending or helping fight against addiction in any way. Those all make it worse. And we've seen it get worse along with homelessness. Drug addiction, drug deaths, and homelessness are some of the only categories where we are actually front runners for gains. There's not a lot of categories in Vermont where we're at the front of the pack for numbers other than increase in homelessness. The only population in Vermont that's increasing is drug addicts and homeless. Hulk writes, taxpayers are tired of paying for people who suck off the system. And that's just it. They really are. So he said self-inflicted BS. So we got some good news. So I'm looking forward to our halftime show, NFL Super Bowl halftime show. And this is funny because we have a lot to unpack with. They are having a Bad Bunny halftime show. And that's the plan. And a lot of people got mad about it. Tons of people got mad about it. That is not really something that represents everybody in the way that they want them to. So, obviously, our friends over at Turning Point USA are firing up the All-American halftime show to slam the NFL's woke Super Bowl pick and reclaim our gridiron glory. Hot off the ABC News this week, October 2025, conservative powerhouse Turning Point USA, honoring founder Charlie Kirk, tragically lost on September 10, drops the gauntlet against Super Bowl, and I don't know which number it is, halftime headliner. The trigger, NFL taps Puerto Rican rap king Bad Bunny for February 8, 2026 at Levi Stadium, expecting a full Spanish spectacle that screams America second. Bad Bunny's October 4 SNL stunt, he drops a Spanish rant, then smirks. If you didn't understand, you have 4 months to learn. Foreshadowing he's going to do the whole thing in Spanish. And that you know how the left is. They think it's funny. Oh, watch all of the people get upset about us speaking in Spanish for the whole halftime. Why don't we just have a regular halftime show? Why don't we have an American halftime show? How about that? How about that? So the All-American halftime show live stream, faith, family, freedom themed, all in English, genres from country to worship. Sign up at their site. Suggest your favorites. No soy boys allowed. It's a great reason for an alternate With Riley Gaines piling on no thanks to learning Spanish, we'll have our own low-rated flops nightmare. Let's jump into the news. The Planet Hank live show streaming on all platforms. Looking at sun today, tomorrow and Saturday with temperatures around 50 degrees. Sunday, partly sunny, 65. Monday and Tuesday, rain. Wednesday, we're dealing with sun again. Finest news in the entire state of Vermont. Brattleboro's down here at the very bottom of the state, which everybody tries to ignore, pretend like we don't exist. But we exist down here. Here in Montpelier, don't forget that we are having a public safety crisis down here at the lower portion of this state. We are one of the hardest hit communities with the opioid crisis. We have the highest amount of deaths. Don't let all of your efforts go to Burlington because it's falling short. So this next story that we're dealing with, we've got ice in Vermont. Get out your snowsuit. Ice is thriving in Vermont, and it's not even close to winter. I can also bring your audience up to speed in regards to the Portland-Chicago process. ICE is expanding its social media surveillance by hiring nearly 30 private contractors to operate a 24/7 Teams scanning platform like Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube for deportation leads. The program targets two hubs, the National Criminal Analyst and the Targeting Center in Williston, Vermont, 12-plus staff, and the Pacific Enforcement Response Center in Santa Ana, California, with after-hours rotations for emergencies. Contractors will collect posts, photos, location tags, and data on associates, including family and coworkers, to bring dossiers on individuals posing as national security risks or meeting enforcement priorities. ICE plans to integrate official intelligence for analysts for analysis and allocate over $1 million annually for tools like commercial databases and open source intelligence from deep web. And the left is having a meltdown about it. There's been all kinds of people in Vermont posting about it. There's been protests about it. Oh, how dare they have a call center, and how dare they uphold federal law and all of this. And I think it's ridiculous. We're dealing with an era of they're being rewarded for wanting to protest about anything. They literally protest about anything and everything. And this Saturday is going to be no different. We are dealing with red on green, Saturday, October 18th from 1 to 3 p.m. I will be speaking. We have Gerald Malloy, Gregory Thayer, and Tom Charlton, and myself, hosted by Roy Spalding and the Windsor County GOP. But as everybody's heard, this event is following directly after the No Kings protest, and they have a No Kings event that they have scheduled for October 18th, that Saturday, right before the event. And so I am expecting that some of the protesters are going to want to stay after to try to A, mess with us, or B, protest us. And hey, do your thing, because one of our goals for this event is to keep it super professional and show the contrast between being a Republican is and being a radical, progressive, extreme activist is. Their plan is to dress up like frogs and wear wild costumes. And their last event, they were screaming F ICE at the top of their lungs over bullhorns. Imagine being a senator and dropping F-bombs all over a downtown community through a bullhorn and having T-shirts on that say, "Is he dead yet?" And just dressing up in costumes and being crazy. And that's their approach. That's their approach to trying to have a conversation. When you're a senator and you represent your county, you represent everybody. And I would wager that Windsor County varies from how she has been representing them through her voting records and her public speaking events, such as her protesting resume along with her sponsoring of a bill to legalize prostitution and decriminalize possession of fentanyl and crack cocaine. I think that pretty much everything that she's doing goes against the ideals of Vermont and the culture and tradition of the state of Vermont and Vermonters as a group. He said, yeah, F bombs. He says, Hank, if you could trade one thing about how money is funded to programs, what would you change? So here in Brattleboro, we just had a special select board meeting discussing how human services budgets and doing a status check-in with the Human Services Committee from RTM, and they presented to the Brattleboro Select Board discussing some of this and how there's a bunch of money. Basically, at our last town election, there was a question on the ballot about how much of our overall budget should we be allocating to give to human services nonprofits in town. And the town voted that they wanted to give more than 2% of our overall budget to human services, which ticks a lot of people off because it makes no sense. We're only one of two towns in the entire state of Vermont that gives any money at all from the town budget to nonprofit organizations that have tons of other funding sources and have plenty of money. We're slated to give Groundwork $75,000 next year, and they've got a budget of millions of dollars. And so a lot of people, who are having their taxes raised and finding the cost of living unbearable in communities that are having public safety crisis and drug crisis and just, quality of life problems, they're wondering, why are we dumping all this money into human services when it seems like we should be spending it in other places, such as making overall costs for homeowners and community members to go down in a big way. He says, good grief, none. Absolutely, it should be none. We should be giving $0 to nonprofits. That's how I think that we should change it. And then for statewide, I'd be looking at the amount of dollars that we're spending for homelessness spending, like the hotel voucher program, is way too high and has caused damage to our communities. And any representative, any senator who is voting in support of increasing spending on hotel voucher programs are going in direct conflict with the best interest of the communities they're supposed to be representing. They got to have blinders on if they think that Brattleboro needs to have more hotel voucher spending, or that we should continue that program in any way, or if it should be increased or even maintained at all. That program should be thrown out immediately. Immediately. We can deal with the fallout after. But the idea that people are coming into a state that have very little requirements for residency, that people can just come in, basically fill out some forms and say that they're going to live here and they need help and they're homeless, and they get prioritized and dumped with a bunch of benefits, food cards, hotel vouchers, and the party just keeps rolling and the drugs just keep rolling. And our sky high response dollars, every time we send a fire truck and police officer for an overdose or a fight or an alcohol incident to one of these hotels, we are draining ourselves. So not only draining ourselves on one side of the human services budget, draining ourselves on responding to human services, actual facilities. Like I pulled some files of over 100 responses in the last few months to Groundworks alone. So if every one of those responses is either $1,000 or up to $10,000 responses, you do the math. If we had 100, 10,000, this is why we're broke. This is why our budgets are not doing what they need to do, and taxes are skyrocketing. Our spending is out of control, trying to coddle a problem that we need to rip the Band-Aid off. Hotel vouchers are nothing more than enabling. Voucher programs don't work. He says, a cruise for a year? I'm in. Hulk Hogan writes, some of these hotels have gotten so bad that they should just turn those certain hotels into Section 8 housing. Would be cheaper than building one. And that type of stuff, just dealing with Vermont, I know there's going to be a ton of red tape on an issue like that anyway. They're going to have to jump through all kinds of hoops, have inspections, change, do a bunch of dump money into these things to even be able to do that. But I agree that there's got to be some way to get some housing, and and something more permanent. This has to go. The hotel voucher program enabling addiction, crime, and drawing homelessness into our communities. Those hotel vouchers do not cover hotels for all year round. They do not. And so there comes a time when everybody on a voucher loses their vouchers or use them all up and get dumped out on the street. And then the cycle continues and the addictions continue and bad behavior and. It needs to change. The Planet Hank live show, the absolute finest form of entertainment on the internet. This show is a little weird. We were trying to do an interview with Senator Ingalls, and it did not work. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to give thanks to my sponsors, one of the most important parts of the show, and I like to celebrate the people who support me and back me up in everything I do. Kings Electric, the finest electrical contractors in all of Brattleboro, Vermont. They serve the entire region, including New Hampshire, residential and commercial electrical contractors who do a very good job and are the most professional and finest company in our town. Love those trucks. Love seeing my stickers on the trucks. Shout out to Kresge's Alignment out there on Canal Street. My man Mike is a self-made mechanic, an American patriot, supporting Planet Hank, and I'd appreciate it if you all stopped in. Huge shout out to Rods and Putney. We've got a lot of plans for the town of Putney and the Republican committees that are getting built in the caucuses, specifically in the town of Putney, who are dealing with Wyndham Windsor housing, building low-income housing in their community in the wake of a overdose, drug DUI death, where a drug addict ran over a woman walking in front of the co-op, and a shooting. Shout out to MOB, Pilot Car LLC, my man Mike O'Brien, always supporting me. The Brattleboro News, the absolute most watched news program in this state. And it's obvious why. Political organization, political action committee, real progress. Strategy, engagement, vision, making waves for the state of Vermont and getting us back on track, because Vermont doesn't feel like Vermont anymore. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Me always, and the Brattleboro News. I love doing this show. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up people to put up dog emojis on the screen. Please put up 3 dog emojis for my very fancy boy, Mr. Marco. Marco is the Brattleboro News co-host and very gorgeous puppy. What a good boy you are right there. Susan Hubble's already got her dog emojis on the board. Someone, please, I need 3 people, at least 3 of you, to put up 3 dog emojis on the screen, and then I will give Marco his bone. Not before, though. Don't make tonight the first day he doesn't get it. Elena, Michael Morrow, there you go. You got him. You got him. Yes, that's a good boy. That is a good boy. CJ Frost. Big shout out. So one more time, I'd like to invite everybody out to my event Saturday out there in Chester, Vermont, Saturday, October 18th, 1 to 3 p.m., directly after the trashy liberal demonstration where they will be obviously protesting our great nation, our president, our traditions, our state. They don't even know what they're protesting. They have no clue what they're mad at. They're just mad all the time. You ever notice that? They're just mad about everything. They have no clue what they're protesting. But they're going to be out there dressed as frogs, is what I understand. So we'll see what happens. The Planet Hank Live show, the finest form of entertainment every Thursday night. We're going to be getting more interviews going, so let's hope that we can get a guest whose audio will work a little better than Senator Russ Ingalls. And so, everybody, thank you for watching Planet Hank Live. Peace.
Planet Hank Live, the absolute finest entertainment on the internet. Join us in fighting back against evil.
It's hotter than a blacktop in July, sweating like a sinner in a church, and I just wanna get out with my crew tonight and shoot at the lights.